Let's chew on all this. Joining us now, we welcome back Reince Priebus, former Republican National Committee chair, former chief of staff, Fox News political analyst now, and Ben Ferguson, host of the Ben Ferguson podcast. Ben, welcome. Good to see you. Good to see you, Reince.
Good to see you.
All right, Reince. I mean, I think
to see you.
Reince, there's like this generic doom and gloom among the Trump people, for heaven's sake, and I don't understand it. They should be much more upbeat. The guy's on a roll. Affordability was Biden's problem. Affordability is Trump's solution, and I'm giving you a few gentle reminders, just a couple of gentle ideas that they might use. Stuff we talk about every night on this show. Stuff I talked about with the president when I interviewed him last week. I think they're in very good shape. I don't care what these phony polls show.
Well, look, I mean, if you look at the generic ballot, and you mentioned that tip poll, it showed basically a 3-point advantage for the Democrats. It's really nothing in generic ballot polling. I don't want to bore your viewers to death with what that all means, but to put it another way, in 2018, the generic ballot, the Democrats had a 8-point advantage at this point in 2018. It's only 3 points. And I agree with you. I mean, getting back to the basics. Look, you need momentum, as we talked about last time, money, and a message. So I think on the message part, you're 100% right. I mean, you've got this inflation under control. You got the immigration under control. Here's what we promised we were going to do. Here's what we're delivering. And by the way, here's where we were 2 years ago. That's part of the message, too. So I think what really the campaign is working on, they know what the message needs to be. They know what works in polling. They process this stuff every day. What they're trying to figure out is, how do we get the momentum back? How do we get back on the balls of our feet?
Yeah.
And how do we message this in a way from a position of momentum? Because we've got the message. How do we get the momentum? And that's what Tuesday is going to be about, and that's what this spring and the summer is going to be about.
Well, I don't know, momentum. I agree. They need some momentum. I mean, Ben, part of it. I'm not saying that all the Trump crowd is pessimistic, but there's too much attention to every 2-bit poll that comes around.
Yes.
And by the way, Reince's point about the tip poll TIP is a very good poll. It has a really good track record. And GOP is only down a couple points. So that's very interesting. And even the tip poll, I mean, if it's down a couple points, it probably means Republicans are up several points. But you've got so many good talking points. That's my point, okay?
Yeah.
If you don't like GDP, okay, you can't eat GDP, I get that. Okay, fine. So my pal John Carney's got over 70 prices, important prices, led by eggs. Remember the eggs crisis a year ago?
Yeah.
That's gone. It's completely gone.
Yeah, they don't want to write about that anymore.
That's right. Never see anything like that again. Here, I'll just read you a couple things. And I think the Trumpers ought to talk about this, okay? Eggs down, unleaded gasoline is down, butter is down, fresh fruits down, tomatoes are down, potatoes are down, dairy products are down. Smartphone prices are down, okay? Sporting events are down. TVs are down. Toys are down. And on and on. Health insurance down. My God, more than 2 percentage points. So talk about all these specific prices that have come down. And meanwhile, take-home pay has gone up by $1,400, according to Kevin Hassett of the NEC. Hassett's the smartest guy. And you're going to get all these tax refunds that's going to multiply it out. So, like, what's not to like here?
Look, if I was the president of the United States of America, and I was the team around him right now at the White House working on the State of the Union, I would go back to that basic line. It's the economy, stupid. Keep it simple, stupid. Keep this a tight speech. And I want our coach, that's Donald Trump, to remind people that, hey, as a team, we're 9-1 right now. We're doing really well. We are way ahead of everybody else in the league. I would then go through those victories. I would remind them of, hey, remember when we beat that team called eggs? Remember when we beat that team called, interest rates? Remember when we beat that team called gasoline and we lowered the rates? Remember when we did this with electronics? Remember when we did this with tariffs? Those are the teams that you beat. We're 9-1 right now. America's in great shape. We're leading the world right now. But the president is going to have to talk to the American people like a coach who's lost a game and remind them of what all the wins are. Keep it simple. Remind the American people where the stock market is. Look at your 401k. If you invest in gold and silver, look where it is right now. There's a lot that you can talk about. But if you're writing this speech, and these speeches are hard, I've had the blessing of being able to work on a few of them at the White House before. You've got to nail this and keep it simple so that Donald Trump can go out there as a coach and he can tell you what we've done and then remind people what's coming. You mentioned no tax on tips. That's just begun. A lot of what was passed last year is now law in January. So remind them about what this year is also going to look like from those reforms. And then say, finally tonight, America, when you go home, remember how cheap it was to drive home compared to that last guy, and wrap it up and keep it about the economy.
You know, Reince, a lot of politicians scoff when I talk about the stock market. Stock market, there's about 135 million Americans who are in the stock market, whether it's IRA, 401k, union pension funds, believe it or not. Unions are making good money on this. Bank accounts are up. Wealth is over $180 trillion in this country. I mean, America is the hottest economy in the world. The thing is, I think Americans know that. I mean, I know the left-wing media won't talk about that. I get that. But I think a lot of Americans are very proud of the fact what we've been doing. And I actually think they're proud of the fact that what Mr. Trump's foreign policy is doing and his trade policy, which is fighting for America against a lot of countries that have tried to keep us out of their markets, Reince. You know what I'm saying? There's just a lot of stuff out there to talk about that's very positive.
Well, there's so much stuff, and you're all hitting on it. And, you know, that's why the key to this and what the president's trying to do is nationalize this midterm. Because everything you're saying is true, but you've got to get people motivated enough that agree with you, that agree that there's something at stake in this midterm, you know, going back to the way things used to be or moving forward. But they have to be motivated. And so that's why Trump is in such a unique position. He's been able to motivate a group of voters in presidential elections that don't vote in midterms to vote in a presidential. And in a midterm, they've got to find a way, and I think that's what they're doing, to get President Trump out there on the campaign trail at a midterm convention, you know, really focusing in on getting presidential electing voters to vote in a midterm. Now, the other piece of this is reminding people of what's to lose, too. Not just how great things are. Hey, they're going to take away your cheap gas. They're going to take away your no tax on tips. They're going to take away your overtime. So, you know, sometimes in these elections, I hate to say it, guys, sometimes you got to get in a ditch a little bit and muddy up the other side, because you have to remind people what they're all about. And what they're all about are a lot of things that people just don't agree with, as far as crime, immigration, transgender, taxes, you know, environmental regulations that increase the price of gas. So you gotta sometimes get bloody with people on the other side in order to win these tough races.
You got to convince the American people that Trump's name is on the ballot in the midterms, and you got to admit that you got to convince the American people that AOC and Mandani is the other side on that ballot, right? Like, it's not Joe Biden. It is the future, the communists, the socialists, the Marxists. And I couldn't agree more with what Reince said there. If you don't do that, that's why you always have the team that's in power in the White House lose a midterm, because people get comfortable. They get relaxed. And they're like, my guys are in, we're good. And all of a sudden they wake up one day and they're like, wait, how did we lose this? Donald Trump has got to put himself on the ballot, because that inspires people to show up.
You know what Ryan said? Ben is right. You're both right on this. Every Democrat in the House voted against one big, beautiful bill. So another way to look at that, they were voting for a $5 trillion tax hike. That was the stakes. And if you put them back into power, they will.
That's what they'll do.
That's right. That is what they'll do. They will. You like your tax cut on tips. You like your tax cut on overtime. You like your your increased child care credit that was in one big beautiful bill. The Democrats voted against every single one of those tax cuts.
The key to America First and Donald Trump is that he has been a master at the 80-20 issue. You know, talking about things in ways that any normal person might agree with. Now, you can, like, for example, Secure the border, protect the American worker. Who doesn't want to do that? Confront China, who's ripping off the world. And stop endless wars. And hey, you know what? International relationships, there ought to be a mutual benefit. Now, even though those four things sound like, well, yeah, these are reasonable things, those can be argued through enormously when you start peeling back the onion. But when you keep it simple, and when you keep things and you say things in a way that 80% of the American people can agree with, you can win. One of the reasons why people like Mandami can be successful is that they're not talking about their crazy views on Israel and their crazy views on transgender and immigration and not deporting criminals.
Talking about free stuff.
What they're talking about is free buses, free groceries. It's us against the billionaires. They're leftist populists. And if you let them just talk like leftist populists and not the cultural whack jobs, they can win. So you really have to watch that.
I'll tell you what else.
Look at what Trump said last week just by getting rid of deregulation on cars, right? Like, that's going to save Americans a whole lot of money. The stupid button in your car that's on-off.
Right.
That's where Americans relate. He said we got to save small refineries so we don't have all this E85 all the time everywhere, which, again, makes gas prices lower. Talk about protecting those small refineries and those small jobs in small towns. Talk about lowering the price of a car. If he does that, it's what got him elected the last time, and it can help him save him in the midterms this time. But he's got to hit it home hard.
I also think we got to get out. You guys are fabulous. I think most Americans kind of like the fact that he's been kicking butt around the world. I just think they really like that a lot. Anyway, Reince Priebus, thank you. Ben Ferguson, good to see you. I appreciate it, fellas.